All things men, that's what it says on the screen behind me. But one of the most important things to many of us guys are the women in our lives. They could be your mom, a grandma, or a sister. Maybe it's your significant other, your daughter, or a good friend. Well, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And for every guy watching this right now, I can guarantee you there's a woman in your life scared to death of getting it. And don't be fooled. Men can get it as well. And that's something we rarely hear about. Today I have two great guests with me, one a physician and the other a breast cancer survivor. So let's talk about it, because cancer-free is something we all want to be. Dr. Warren Jones, my old friend, thank you for being on this show. You were the first African American president of the American Academy of Family Physicians. You're also the chair of the National Forum for Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention.
Yes.
That's how we met.
Yes.
You also served on the President's Select Panel on Surviving and Living After Cancer, which leads me to my first question. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You see pink ties on CBS This Morning, The Today Show, GMA. Yeah, I once flew during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and all the flight attendants were in pink, and the plane was pink. How did we get here?
You know, it's amazing. First of all, Mark, thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. I've always been someone who's admired the work that you've done, and now to see you pursuing your passion is even more rewarding. I need to say to your viewers and your guests how fortunate they are to have someone like you, as compassionate as you are, to share your platform.
Thank you.
We've gotten to the point of finally understanding that cancer is something that can be prevented, and if not prevented, it can be ameliorated in terms of the impact it can have on your life. Ameliorated means that you lessen the adverse impact on your life. Some cancers we can't avoid. They're genetically initiated. Some we can identify early by appropriate screening. And what this Breast Cancer Awareness Month says is that if you're a woman or a man who has a history of breast cancer, you need to make sure that you follow the guidelines that say when you should be screened, and you should engage in self-screening. But more importantly, beyond the screening, you need to have a primary care home, or usual and customary place where you get care, so that once you have that information, folks can work with you to make sure that you participate regularly in the things you need to do to stay healthy and live a long life.
Warren, we'll get to that in a second, but first, when I was younger, there was a rumor going around that if you touched someone who had cancer, you would get cancer too. It sounds ludicrous now, but back then we were like, oh no, how did that get going?
Well, there are rumors that get started, and they used to be called old wives' tales, but you can't say that anymore. But in reality, there's more misinformation scared by the myth that lives forever than anything else. There were times that people believed that you could get breast cancer from sitting on a toilet seat behind someone else. Okay, these are things that just don't make sense. The question is, how do we increase people's health literacy so that they can understand what's really going on in their lives and with their lives, and how they can mold out for themselves the best lives that they can have? And that's where dealing with these myths come into play. In dealing with with COVID today, it's being called misinformation and disinformation. But we've had misinformation going on for a long time surrounding diseases like cancer, surrounding diseases like hypertension and heart disease. And we've just got to raise people's health literacy enough to know what the facts are and how to apply those facts to their lives.
One thing people might not know is men get breast cancer as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Too many people just don't know that. It's not nearly as common as it is in women. But now that we know the genomic makeup and the genetic makeup of certain types of breast cancer, we not only have to screen our female children, but we have to screen our male children because some of them may actually develop breast cancer. And if not, some females among their children may develop breast cancer. So it's important to know about that. There's no substitute to being able to examine your own body. For women, that's learning how to do a BSE, a breast self-examination. And for men, it's inspecting your body when you shower and you shave, not just your Adonis pose, but to make sure that there aren't unusual things going on that you should take to the attention of your physician. With men, breast cancer is usually very advanced because they go into denial at the time it's discovered, because they go into denial. So if we tell men, if you have an unusual structure on your breast, on your chest, see someone right away and get that screening done.
Warren, I have to ask you about being the first African American elected as president of the American Academy of Family Physicians. Tell me about that.
I was elected at the end of 1999. Okay. It was beginning of the year 2000. And I took office in 2001, right after 9/11. Okay. At the time I was a candidate, there were people who told me the academy isn't ready for a Black leader. And what I said to them, I don't want the academy to be ready for a Black leader. I want the academy to be ready for me to lead, because I had a history of having led, I had a history of having made a difference, and I had the skills and training to help our academy at that difficult time in our history. I did not ever lose sight of the fact that I was Black, but I wanted people to look beyond the obvious at, at the skills that I had. Now, I took office less than 2 weeks after 9/11. And what were we in? We were in this really topsy-turvy period of being frightened about chemical warfare and about attacks in our communities. And I had to help our family physicians to become the public health sentinels for their communities, to help people to learn how to deal with whether it was a anthrax exposure or something like that. You know, I got to tell you that 20 years later, another Black man was elected president of the American Academy of Family Physicians 20 years later. And guess what conditions he had to deal with? He had to deal with COVID. And he was followed by a Black woman who was elected as president. And guess what she had to deal with? Not only COVID, but she had to deal with the Delta variant. I don't know what it is that when we finally get to points of leadership, we have these really unbelievable issues with which to deal. But I've got to tell you that family physicians across the nation accepted me as their leader. And when I visited their communities accepted me. That gave me a renewed belief in America that we can look beyond the biases and look at someone's true character and let that character be what influences our lives. I can tell you I'm a better man for having served, and I hope that I do best to help the communities that I visit.
Dr. Warren Jones, thank you for your insight, your intelligence on breast cancer and on the American Academy of Family Physicians. My friend, Warren Jones, all the best.
Thank you so much, Mark. Best to you and your family. And I'm so thankful to know you. And I just hope that all individuals will be as conscious about their health as you are about yours. Wishing you the best.
Maria Roach, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, Mark. It's good to be here.
Maria, let me run some credits. You were in the 92 Winter Olympics for CBS Sports. I was there. We didn't know each other.
No.
NBC News and Dateline. And also you worked on Oprah for over 10 years. That's very cool. Currently the executive producer of documentaries and investigations for the Black News Channel. Nice credits. You're also a 12-year breast cancer survivor.
13 this year.
13. I would think that's a group you want to be in and a group you don't want to be in. Tell me about the first thing you want to be in that group.
I feel every day just gratitude for my survivorship. And as I think about the challenges, also the lessons learned and the friendships, cancer is definitely a group you don't want to be in because it's always in the back of your head, a recurrence. But surviving it, that's a life chapter in and of itself.
When you found out that you were diagnosed as having breast cancer, I've never been down that road before. Tell me what happened next.
It was January of 2008. My twin sister, Janet, at the time was battling 7 years of cancer. It was always in the back of my mind as a twin. There was a possibility. My son was a year and a half, so going back even before January, and while I was nursing him, I found I was having pain in my left breast. And I spoke to my OBGYN and they said, oh, that's normal. It's probably a clogged milk duct. And the pain was so much that I ended up weaning him earlier than I had planned to. January was when I pushed my OBGYN, something's not right. There is this just a burning sensation, something's not right. We did a mammogram, was inconclusive, and then we followed up with an ultrasound. And the ultrasound was the first time that my doctor said, huh. Mind you, I mean, no one knows your body better than yourself. I knew something wasn't right. So again, I said, okay, then what's the next step? And they said it would be a stereotactic core biopsy. Big word, even scarier event. You're literally lying face down and they take a very long, fine needle and
Ouch.
pierce the area of concern and pull out tissue to biopsy it.
Ow.
I was right. And it was at that point, Mark, that they said, we have detected cancerous tissues. Oh.
What did you think? What went through your mind?
I approached it like a journalist. Investigative journalism is my background, so I immediately dived into the deep end of the research. And while I was making these decisions, Janet had a good friend and a neighbor who was also a breast cancer survivor, a Black woman. And this was really important because breast cancer hits Black women harder than any other group. We often are diagnosed as triple negative, which are the types that are hard to treat.
Why is that?
I think it's just our metabolism. There's something really sinister about the way cancer just grabs hold of our bodies. And too many times we are diagnosed late. Too many times we wait too long to go to the doctor. Well, with me, and because I'm the daughter of social workers, self-advocacy was part of my DNA. My parents never waited for anyone to tell them anything. So when I started feeling that, something's not right, I pushed my doctor and I pushed for information and I pushed for a treatment plan. It was just at that time that my husband had a new position as a senior VP at a bank. And so we had like the Cadillac of healthcare. And that was pretty new. Coming out of NBC News, I had awesome healthcare. But then we did a stint as business owners and small business owners. We had terrible healthcare. So now we had these great options. So that gave me more control. And the first thing I did was call an old friend of mine in New York whose her stepfather was like one of the top oncologists in the world. And not everyone has that type of access, but I did, and I wasn't going to take it for granted. And so I called him and I faxed to him. Remember faxes back in the day? And I gave him all of the results from all of my lab tests. And he said, okay, well, what are your doctors saying? And I said, well, one oncologist said I should have a bilateral mastectomy, and that is, having both breasts removed. And he said, well, you only have cancer in the left breast. Do you like your right breast? And I said, well, doctor, I'm quite fond of my right breast. I'd like to keep it. And I had little kids. My boys were toddlers. And he explained to me, psychologically, there is that risk that you're always going to worry about the cancer coming back, but you also have to consider the healing time. And a bilateral mastectomy, that'll require longer time to heal.
Did you go through chemotherapy?
I didn't. I was quite fortunate in that I was stage 0. It was a ductal carcinoma in situ is the term. So I had cancer in my milk duct. And I asked all the questions like, can I save the nipple? No, the cancer had spread to the nipple. They asked me like, are you in the field? Like, no, I'm just a journalist. I looked at everything, and by the time I had the mastectomy in July of 2008, the cancer had just spread throughout the breast. So I had to have the entire left breast removed, and then I opted for reconstruction immediately after.
Your twin sister, they may not know, passed away 2017?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
We were 2 minutes apart. Everyone knew Janet and Maria. She was the light in my eye. I never thought I would love anyone more than her until I met my husband. And I never thought I would love any more than Janet and Michael until we had our boys. But it was always Janet and Maria. We played high school volleyball together. We went to Hampton University together. Friends would come up to us and say, how many of you are there? Because we were just all over that campus. I knew when Janet was diagnosed in 2001 with breast cancer that I was just, every day was a gift with her. Friends would complain sometimes because I would literally drop everything for her, and they would say, well, let's plan a trip together. I'm like, no, I'm traveling to go see Janet. If the phone rang, it was Janet. I talked to her every day. And I don't think I really understood that one day there would be a life without her, but I knew that I wanted to make the most of my time. So my children only knew that there were two of us. They never really imagined, Maria without Auntie Janet. And her daughters had me. Auntie Mommy is what they called me. And I can't explain, except my best friends who are also twins, it's a gift. Having a twin is just the most amazing thing.
As a father of twins, I know exactly what you're talking about. Maria, you are an inspiration. I tell all the people watching, remember the name, Maria Roach. And thank you so much for being here today.
It's been a pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.
America's history is filled with huge contributions from Black Americans that are rarely talked about. Henrietta Lacks is one of those people. In 1951, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Tissue samples of her cells were sent to a lab for testing. Doctors quickly learned there was something amazing about her cells. For some reason, under testing, other people's cells would die, but hers doubled every 20 to 24 hours. Today, these incredible cells are nicknamed HeLa cells, using the first two letters of her first and last name. Her game-changing cells made it possible to study the effects of toxins, drugs, hormones, and viruses on the growth of cancer cells without experimenting on humans. She died October 4th, 1951, not knowing her cells were donated or the impact she made worldwide. In 2017, Oprah Winfrey made a movie about her story based on the book The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by author Rebecca Skloot. Great show today. If you want to be part of the conversation, go to Twitter or Facebook at All Things Men BNC. Till next time.